All right. Welcome back, students. I hope I'm audible to all of you. Now, in our previous lecture, क्या discuss किया था हमने? We had talked about the Mauryan society. Today, we need to talk about the economy of the Mauryan Empire. Right? What is the picture that we have? The archaeology and literary evidence indicate that the Mauryan period was one of an expanding economy in all sectors. So, in all sectors of the economy, expansion was being seen, growth was visible. The expansion of the economy, what were the factors behind that? It was the result of interactions among various factors like development in rural agricultural productivity, the emergence of iron-based craft production by specialized labor, and artisans and trade. Okay? So agricultural productivity, craft production, and trade. These were the factors. From the time of Chandragupta Maurya and his successors, this strong army ensured internal security and protection from foreign aggression as well. So the state was providing stability and protection, which was necessary for the growth of economy. The Mauryan economy has in fact been classified as a classic model of state-controlled economy. Why? Because the state was not only involved in the regulation of the economy, it was a major participant of the economy as well. State participated in agriculture, industries, as well as trade. The state not only controlled and supervised the economic activities, but also provided the necessary infrastructure in the form of transportation and communication infrastructure, in the form of ports, highways, etc., but also in the form of the administrative infrastructure that was necessary to facilitate trade. And this is all going to necessitate the employment of a large number of civil servant of functionaries in order to perform these administrative tasks, and a well-stocked treasury for large financial outlays as well. So the state would have to incur a vast amount of financial expenditure in order to facilitate economic growth. Take. And consequently, all segments of the society were taxed and fines were imposed even for minor offenses. Why? Because if the state lost its ability to facilitate the growth of the economy, then the economy itself is going to falter, because the state was the biggest factor in facilitating economic growth. That is why it was important for the state to be in an economically strong position. Okay? So the state was also the beneficiary of economic growth, and it was also the facilitator of economic growth. In fact, the entire economy was set up in such a way that it would fulfill the basic needs of the state. Now, coming to the rural economy. The rural economy was developed by establishing new settlements and rehabilitation of old ones by drafting surplus settlers from overpopulated areas. This is the kind of economic manipulation that the state was involved in. If any settlement was dying, it was getting depopulated, it was decaying, then surplus settlers would be brought from areas which were overpopulated. Further, new settlements would be created also by resettling the surplus people from those overpopulated areas. Shudras who worked as slaves and hired laborers were transported to these new areas. They were given land, tax exemptions, and other concessions by way of supplying cattle, seeds, and money by the state as well. So the state played a very important role in manipulating rural economic growth. Agriculture. Megasthenes states that all the land belonged to the king and it was cultivated by the farmers for the king. Is this correct? No. However, historians are of the opinion that Megasthenes' view is biased, as the various texts quoted on this matter refer to king only as the protector of all the land and not as the owner of all the land. Right? In the Jatakas, we hear of terms such as Gahapatis or Gram Bhojakas, who appear to be in control of a lot of land. So they were terms used for large landowners. The precise function of these Gahapatis is not clear to us, but Romila Thapar is of the opinion that Gahapatis were a class of entrepreneurs who were responsible for development of agricultural village in new areas. Thus, they performed the role of landowners. Okay? The land also fell into two distinct categories. First is the ordinary land, whose cultivators paid traditional taxes to the government. And the next is the Sita land. What is this? The crown's own land, settled as well as farmed directly under crown supervision. There was an official known as Sita Adhyaksh also, who was the superintendent of all crown lands. Right? The principal tax was the royal share in the harvest. This was known as Bhag, amounting to perhaps 1/6 of the total produce. During emergency, this was raised to 1/4 of the produce. Sharecroppers also existed. What was their relationship with the state? The state provided them land as well as seeds, as well as implements, as well as oxen. They provided labor. In the end, whatever produce was there, half of it went to the cultivator, half went to the state. These were sharecroppers. Okay? Sharecroppers also existed, and the government received half of their crop as share in return for the supply of seeds and oxen to them. Various other taxes were imposed on the peasants besides the regular bhag. These include the Pindarika, an assessment tax which was collected from groups of villages. Pindarika का मतलब, assessment tax का मतलब, a tax through which the royal officials who were in charge of assessing the revenue demand, they would be paid. Okay? So the right to cultivate a particular portion of land would be contingent upon the promise that from that produce, one share has to go to the state. Now, to decide how much should go to the state, for that an assessment has to be done. And for that, some assessors have to be employed. Who is going to pay them? The cultivators, right? Groups of villages mein Pindarika was collected in order to pay the tax assessors. Bali, whose nature is unknown, or Bali, right? Kar, a part of the produce from the fruit of flowers and gardens, etc. Then Sena Bhakta was the provision to the royal army, and Hiranya seems to be a payment in cash. Okay? These normal taxes could not meet the mounting expenditure of the state, so we have references to the emergency tax in Panini's Ashtadhyayi and Kautilya's Arthashastra as well. The imposition of pranya according to the nature of the soil, however, only once, amounting to 1/3 or 1/4 of the produce, was one such measure. So different types of taxes were collected from the rural landscape. All these show that the whole economy of the country was geared to fulfilling the financial needs of the state. Most of the taxes were gathered in kind and deposited in the central storehouse under the supervision of its superintendent. Okay? So these were the different developments seen in agriculture. Alag-alag players kaun hai? Only the state or also private individuals? Both the state as well as private individuals. What are the roles of the state? It is a landowner and a farmer as well. It employs a large army of slaves and sharecroppers to have its land cultivated. It is also a revenue assessor and tax collector. Who are the different individuals involved in agriculture? Gahapatis, who were the landowners, Shudras and slaves, along with wage laborers and sharecroppers. These were the persons involved in agriculture. What is the relationship between these individuals and the state? The state provides them protection and in some cases, the necessary equipment, seeds, as well as oxen to perform agriculture. In return, it expects a large variety of taxes. The exact amount of taxes would be variable from place to place, from time to time, and the emerging situations, emerging circumstances. Regarding animal husbandry, there were some pockets where pastoral economy was pursued. The domestic animals included cattle, goats, sheep, asses, camels, etc. Herds were maintained not only by the state but also by wealthy individuals also. Fishing and hunting were also pursued as a means of livelihood. By whom? By tribal communities especially, right? The practitioners of these occupations had to pay 1/10 of their total catch to the royal storehouse as tax. Thus, one of the motives behind Ashoka's ban on indiscriminate killing of animals may have been economic. Cattle wealth was utilized by the people and part of it was paid to the state. If the cattle wealth itself was destroyed, what would happen to the state income from cattle? That would also decline. So this may have also been one of the motivators behind Ashoka's insistence upon non-injury to animals. Now, with regards to craft production, in Buddhist texts, we have references to various metals, manufacturing of ornaments from precious metals, domestic tools, and agricultural implements. Okay, made of metals. Mining and metallurgy was an important activity which sustained royal power, agriculture, trade, and industry. Mining was a complete state monopoly. The state exercised complete monopoly on the manufacture of arms, ships, salt, production, and certain other implements as well. Other products like dyes, gums, drugs, perfumes, and chemicals, etc., were also manufactured in the state enterprises alone. Liquor brewing was also under official supervision. Certain centers like Mathura, Kashi, Mahisa, etc., became famous for their excellent fabric. Woolen work was also flourishing. The Greek texts mention masterpieces in embroidery from these places as well. Contemporary texts also refer to stone cutters. So stone masonry was also an important area. Advanced leather work is referred to in Buddhist literature and the arthashastra also. The archaeological findings prove that pottery making had also reached high level of specialization as proven by the availability of northern black polished ware and ring wells. Okay? So in craft production, various activities were taking place. With regards to guild, are we going to see more of the same pattern or a major change? Major change. क्या देखने के लिए मिलेगा? They are going to come under royal authority now. They are going to lose their autonomy. The industry or craft production was under a centralized economic administration. Although craftsmen were organized into guilds, the state's own participation in commodity production was significant. Market regulations existed as well, especially in the cities. The literary sources frequently refer to the institution of guilds, which developed and stabilized under Mauryas due to their extension of trade. These guilds controlled almost the entire manufacturing. They were registered by local officials also, right? This was not a practice during the pre-Mauryan period. These guilds developed a social hierarchy within their own artisans as well. A guild acted as a check on fraudulent practices by artisans and maintained wage levels by collective bargaining. By the last phase of Mauryan rule, guilds would, however, become independent. Why? Because Mauryan royal authority itself is going to shrink. It is going to contract. Right? It became independent of the state's economic policy. This was an important reason for the continued economic prosperity and absence of any significant economic dislocation even after the sunset of Mauryan rule. Right? Had the guilds not gained independence, what would have happened with the decline of the Mauryan Empire? As the government failed, so would have trade, commerce, production, all kinds of economic activity that was being regulated by the state through these guilds. Okay? And because the guilds were able to extricate themselves from royal control, what happened? The economy itself was sheltered from the collapse of the Mauryan power. Okay? This is proven from the fact that these guilds are denoted as significant source of religious charity in the Buddhist and Jain sources in the post-Mauryan period. With regards to trade and commerce, now, according to the Arthashastra, trade regulations were carefully planned and executed by a well-organized system during the Mauryan period. The sale of merchandise was strictly supervised. The tax rate levied on merchandise seems to be 1/10 of the price, but variation was inevitable according to the type and quality of the products. Toll tax was also collected. Then we have also seen arthashastra में एक prescribed formula था. क्या? The general principle was that traders dealing in foreign articles should not get more than 10% profit, and those dealing in indigenous articles should not get more than 5% profit. इसके ऊपर जितना भी profit होगा, the state would collect it as tax. Right? Trade flourished due to political unity and centralized administration, which in turn proved efficient transport security and provided efficient transport security and communication by building roads, market towns, etc. So trade was being promoted by the state both directly as well as indirectly. The friendly relation between the Mauryan rulers and the Hellenistic rulers also reinforced the Indian foreign trade. External trade was also being promoted because of Maurya's external policy. What were the different items of trade? Foreign trade was mainly with Egypt, West Asia, Red Sea region and the Seleucid Empire in the west, and Burma, Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia to the east. According to Greek classical sources, Indian exports consisted of ivory, tortoise shells, pearls, cotton textile and rare wood. Imports consisted of horses, hides and other luxury goods. These exchanges and commercial interactions acted as a conduit to the cultural and intellectual diffusion. So along with goods, people as well as ideas also moved along the important trade routes. Trade routes क्या हैं? Different trade routes are mentioned in the contemporary texts. These traverse the length and breadth of the country. Mainly 4 routes were important internally. First, which ran east to west, principally along the Ganga Yamuna. This route linked Chandraketugarh to Mathura via Patliputra, Banaras and Kaushambi. So along the entire Ganga Yamuna belt. Second one, from the north to the Deccan. This route extended from various cities in the Ganga Yamuna Doab to Pratishthan, Bharuch, Dwarka, Suvarnagiri and Mosali or Masulipatnam, etc. Okay? From north to the south. Third one, from Patliputra to the ports in the east, such as Tamralipti, Mahathangad and Chandraketugarh. And fourth one, from Yamuna Ganga towards western cities, such as Takshila, Shakal and Pushkalvati. Pushkalvati is Peshawar, Shakal is Sialkot. Okay? It further stretched from the land of the 5 rivers to the great highways of Central and Western Asia. We are talking about the Silk route over here. Okay? So across Western and Central Asia, along the sea routes, these routes were connected. Literary references to the roads of the deep south are few, but the trade and cultural links definitely existed. How do we know? As witnessed from Ashokan edicts present in Karnataka region, as well as mention of important ports and cities in contemporary Buddhist literature. Regarding monetization, Megasthenes क्या बोलता है? He states that Indians neither put money into usury nor knew how to borrow. Is this the correct picture of the Indian economy? No. This hardly seems possible, and credit is the key for trade and commerce. Also, Kautilya also deals with organized money lending in the Arthashastra. Thus, it seems that there was no taboo against such activity. In the Arthashastra and contemporary Greek texts, we have references to the gold coins called Niksha and Suvarna, silver coins called Dharnas and Panas, and copper coins called Karshapanas or Masikas. Okay? But we find these only in the form of literary references. We have not found any gold coin from the Mauryan period. First dynasty to issue gold coins in India, the Indo-Greeks, okay, post-Mauryan period. The coins were issued by a central authority, probably the imperial mint. We do not know whether these coins were simply tokens for trading purposes or they symbolize the sovereignty of the king as well. considering the circulation pattern of coins in the economy, it was seen that the copper coins, being smaller in value or denomination, were more widely used, followed by silver coins, which were mainly hoarded as wealth or used for high value transactions. So level of monetization was growing during the Mauryan age. It was higher as compared to the pre-Mauryan Mahajanpad period. ये हो गए the coins, the economy of the Mauryan age. Now, write down a few lines about the Mauryan economy. लिखिए. The Mauryan economy presented a picture of expansion presented a picture of expansion. Full stop. In fact, it represented the beginning of the mature phase of the second urbanization. Beginning of the mature phase of the second urbanization. Full stop. This economic growth was the result of a combination of factors. Was the result of a combination of factors, including the expansion of agriculture, the growth of crafts and manufacturing, and the rise of trade and commerce. The rise of trade and commerce. Full stop. Next point. The Mauryan state played an important role in facilitating this economic growth. कैसे? It provided political unity and stability. By providing political unity, it connected the economic systems of the different parts of the subcontinent, and by providing stability, it was providing the necessary requirements for the growth of agriculture, for the growth of craft production and economy. It provided freedom from frequent warfare, which was disrupting economic growth. Secondly, it also stabilized the northwest frontier region and thus provided necessary protection to the domestic economy. Thirdly, it also provided the necessary connectivity, infrastructure, and a regulatory framework to facilitate economic growth. Fourthly, it also played a direct role in sorry in manufacturing and crafts. And finally, it also facilitated the expansion of agriculture. How? By rehabilitating the decaying settlements and by settling the uninhabited areas by the or through the resettlement of surplus people from overpopulated regions, especially Shudras, by providing them things such as money, oxen, implements, and seeds to undertake cultivation, by giving them tax exemptions for a particular period of time, by providing security to them, right? So these were the kinds of things, and also by investing in the expansion of artificial irrigation, construction of canals or tanks or ring wells, etc. Okay? So state was playing a major role in facilitating economic growth. क्या लाइन लिखा है आपने? In facilitating economic growth. In the form of subpoints, you can write it established centralized control, thus providing stability and unity. Thus providing stability and unity. Full stop. Next subpoint. The northwest frontier was also stabilized. The northwest frontier was also stabilized. Protecting the Indian economy from foreign invasions. Full stop. Next subpoint. The state also provided the necessary connectivity infrastructure, regulatory framework, and security to promote trade. Next subpoint. It played a direct role. In manufacturing and crafts production. Full stop. Next subpoint. It also emerged as a prominent consumer of metallic objects, food grains, cloth, leather, wood, timber, wood, and stone. Thus providing, thus providing, or thus creating huge demand and employment. Thus creating huge demand and employment. ठीक है? Next sub point लिखो. The state also played a significant role. The state also played a significant role in the expansion of agriculture. Of agriculture. Full stop. Sub point. हाँ, ABC करके लिख लो. इसका ही सब पॉइंट. A. Surplus population was transferred to decaying settlements to rehabilitate them or to uninhabited regions to rehabilitate them or to uninhabited regions to bring them under the plow. Bring them under the plow. Full stop. B लिखो. The state also provided agricultural assistance by giving farmers seeds, tools, oxen, and credit. Oxen and credit. C लिखो. The state also invested heavily in the construction and maintenance of irrigation works such as lakes, dams, wells, and canals. Full stop. Next could be the state also protected farming communities from disruptive elements such as raiders, disruptive elements such as raiders and tribals. ठीक है? So in this way, the Mauryan state was facilitating the expansion of the economy. Take down a question. Analyze the factors responsible for economic growth during the Mauryan age. During the Mauryan age. हो जाएगा? What was it a result of? Combination of factors such as the expansion of agriculture, growth of crafts and manufacturing, as well as rise of trade and commerce. इसके पीछे मेजर रोल किसने प्ले किया? The state itself, by providing all these things. Clear? Next question, take down. On the basis of literary and archaeological evidence, examine the role of the Mauryan state in the economy. So what kind of an approach did the Mauryan state have towards the economy? A hands-off approach or a hands-on approach? A hands-on approach. ठीक है? लिखो the answer. The Mauryans created a huge empire. Possibly the largest in Indian history. Possibly the largest in Indian history. Further, what kind of a state did the rulers have in their mind? An ordinary state or a superordinate state? A superordinate universal state. Likho, further, the rulers envisioned a universal state. Rulers envisioned a universal state which controlled all aspects of the lives, of its subjects. Now, in order to create such a universal state, what was needed? A large bureaucracy and a large military. उसके लिए क्या चाहिए होगा? Extraordinary amount of resources. Traditional sources of revenue, were they sufficient to sustain this kind of a bureaucracy, military, and create such a universal state? नहीं थे. That is why they had to take some extraordinary measures with regards to the economy. लिखो. For this, a major military and bureaucratic. Expansion was necessary at an unprecedented scale. At an unprecedented scale. Full stop. As a result, the traditional sources of revenue were insufficient. Traditional sources of revenue were insufficient. Thus, the state had to adopt a novel approach. A novel approach. A novel approach with respect to the economy. With respect to the economy. ठीक है? Give the subheading. Economic role of the Mauryan state. लिखो. The Mauryan economy presents a classic case of a state-controlled economy. Of a state-controlled economy. Full stop. The state not only regulated the different aspects of the economy, not only regulated the different aspects of the economy, it also provided the basic ingredients for economic growth. Basic ingredients for economic growth. The state not basic ingredients for economic growth. For economic growth है ना? हाँ, आगे लिखो. These elements were visible both in the rural and urban economy. Now, पहले rural economy में what is the role of the state? The state was a large landowner. It was also a prominent cattle owner. So it was involved directly in these things. The state also employed a large army of slaves and sharecroppers to cultivate its land. Additionally, it also provided financial assistance to farmers and undertook economic expenditure to expand irrigation facilities. The state also provided the basic ingredients for economic expansion, such as political stability, regulation and regulation of ownership, and protection from hostile powers and other disruptive elements, right? So the state was directly as well as indirectly contributing to agricultural expansion. Write down. The state was a large landowner. The state was a large landowner. Full stop. Crown lands or Sita lands were overseen by the Sita Adhyaksh. Were overseen by the Sita Adhyaksh. Full stop. That's the point. Slaves, wage laborers, and sharecroppers were used to cultivate the Sita land. To cultivate the Sita land. Full stop. Next point. The state also contributed to the expansion of agriculture through clearing of forests, rehabilitation of decaying settlements, transplantation of surplus population, to uninhabited regions, providing financial and material assistance, to cultivators, expanding irrigation network or irrigation facilities, and providing political stability, political stability, comma, a legal framework for protecting ownership rights, for protecting ownership rights and security, and security. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट मेन पॉइंट लिखो, दिस रूरल इकोनॉमी में ही the state also facilitated rural economic growth, rural economic growth through the regulation of animal husbandry, hunting and fishing, and fishing. Full stop. Subpoint. The state was not only a large cattle owner, was not only a large cattle owner, but also derived substantial income, derived substantial income from animal husbandry, hunting and fishing by ordinary individuals and communities, by ordinary individuals and communities. Full stop. Ordinary individuals and communities. Next point. Therefore, cattle's, forests and fishing grounds represented a valuable economic resource that the state wanted to preserve, that the state wanted to preserve. Full stop. Next subpoint. It is perhaps due to this that Ashok emphasized upon non-injury to animal life, non-injury to animal life. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट. The arthashastra recommends that the state should collect a 10% levy from such activities, Full stop. ये हो गया rural economy. Next, urban economy. अर्बन इकोनॉमी में कौन कौन से एलिमेंट्स आएंगे? क्राफ्ट प्रोडक्शन, ट्रेड, guilds, monetary system, etc. Right? These kinds of things. First of all, crafts production. What was the role of the state in this field? It exercised a monopoly in several sectors of crafts production. Write down. The state had a complete monopoly, in mining, the manufacture of arms, ships, salt, liquor, dyes, gums, chemicals, etc. Further, other crafts were regulated. How? Through the craft guilds, which now came under the direct control of the state. Other crafts were closely regulated through the crafts guilds, which now came directly under state control. Okay. Since we have mentioned guilds, next aspect of the urban economy that we are going to talk about is the guilds themselves. लिखो. Guilds known as shrenis or sanghas or ganas had existed ever since the beginning of the Mahajanpad age. Ever since the beginning of the Mahajanpad age. However, during the Mauryan age, they experienced a significant loss of autonomy. Full stop. Unlike earlier Unlike earlier, all guilds were required to register with local officials full stop. Manufacturing and trade were coordinated by the Mauryan state. They did not take place organically any longer. ठीक है? Further, the guilds lost the ability to issue coins, which now became a royal monopoly. Okay? Lost the ability to issue coins, which now became a royal monopoly. The traditional functions performed by the guilds including things such as setting and enforcing professional standards, setting of prices, enforcing quality standards, overseeing training and apprenticeship, and enjoying judicial powers over guild members. Earlier, all these functions were being performed by the guild without any external interference. Would this be possible now? No. They also came under state control. And we know of this also. How? Because many of these traditional functions were now being overseen by city officials as per Megasthenes. For example, the setting of prices, enforcing the quality of goods being sold in the market, collection of tolls, facilitation of trade and commerce, overseeing the industry, craft production, etc. Right? तो उसके लिए मेगास्थनीज बोलता है अलग अलग कमिटीज बन गई थी which were populated with royal officials. 30 members का एक council divided into 6 committees. Remember that ना? ठीक. So they came under state control along with the guilds themselves. Next main point likho under guilds only. However, towards the end of the Mauryan age, what happened? The guilds broke away from the influence of the state. The guilds successfully escaped state control and regained their authority and autonomy. And it was due to this that the political collapse of the Mauryan Empire did not induce an economic collapse in India. Okay? And it is in fact because of this that during the post-Mauryan we are going to see what? More economic expansion and growth or lesser economic expansion and growth? Even more, post-Mauryan period, even more accelerated growth. Why is this? Because during the Mauryan age, state was in complete command of the economy and these trade guilds. They did not have the power to take decisions independently of the state. So every resource allocation, uske piche who would be the main person pulling the lever? Some royal official, some bureaucrat. The mechanism of the market, the free hand of the market was not being allowed to operate independently, operate freely. With the removal of state authority, state control, what would happen? The free hand of the market would regain its freedom. Resource allocation would become much more efficient. And as a result, during the post-Mauryan period, the peak of ancient Indian economy is going to be seen. Next sub point likho. In fact, it is believed that Mauryan state control over the economy was acting as a retardant. Once it was removed, once it was removed, comma, the Indian economy accelerated substantially to reach its peak during the post-Mauryan age. Okay? So this is the picture of the guilds. Clear? दो चीजें दिखती हैं in the initial stage, in the stage of empire building. The autonomy of the guilds disappeared. They came under state control. Whereas during the collapse of the empire, these guilds regained their autonomy, which resulted not only in the survival of the Indian economy, but its exponential growth in the post-Mauryan period. Next aspect of the urban economy, trade and commerce. लिखो, both internal and external trade were closely regulated by the state. Were closely regulated by the state. Full stop. The state exercised complete control over the trade routes, ports, and shipping. Full stop. Next main point लिखो. In return, comma, the state collected a large variety of taxes from trade, including sales tax, excise duty, customs, tolls, and transportation charges. Full stop. Next point. The arthashastra prescribes a fixed formula for taxing trade. Namely, that a trader should get a maximum 10% profit from the sale of foreign goods and 5% from the sale of indigenous items. Full stop. Next point. The Mauryan state actively worked to promote trade and commerce. By providing क्या political stability, administrative unity, as well as uniformity. protection to traders, maintenance or construction and maintenance of highways, ports, and ships. Concluding trade agreements with external rulers, etc. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट लिखो. Important items of trade included एक्सपोर्ट्स में क्या क्या, क्लॉथ, स्पाइसेस, एलिफेंट्स, ज्वेलरी, सैंडलवुड, agarwood, ivory, shells, etc. And in imports क्या क्या, horses, leather, wool, raw silk, horses, leather, wool, raw silk, and some luxury goods. Next लिखो. Contemporary texts. Contemporary texts mention 4 prominent state-controlled highways. Number 1, Mathura to the east coast, via Kasi, Prayag, Patliputra, and Chandraketugarh. This is the route along the Ganga Yamuna. Second, Mathura to the western cities of Takshila, Sakal, and Pushkalvati. Third, from Patliputra to Tamralipti, an overland route via Chandraketugad and Nastangad. And fourthly, from Patliputra to the south. That connecting Patliputra to cities such as Sopara, Ujjain, Pathan, Suvarnagiri, and Mosali. It is Masulipatnam. Okay? So these were 4 highways that were maintained by the state. This is the state's contribution in the field of trade and commerce. Next, with regards to the monetary system, the money economy. Huh? Within urban economy only. Monetary system. Write down. It was brought under state control as indicated by references to officials such as some Mauryan officials who were in charge of regulating the currency. Kon? Modra Adhyaksh and Roop Darshak. This was the superintendent of the currency as a whole, and this was the superintendent of the Royal Mint. Okay. Earlier, this was under the control of the guilds. As compared to the Mahajanpad age, what do we see? The purity of coins is higher or lower? Higher. Write down. In comparison to the Mahajanpad age, the relatively higher purity of Mauryan coins, a relatively higher purity of Mauryan coins indicates what? Rising prosperity. Indicates rising prosperity. And what about coins of a later vintage when the Mauryan Empire was declining after Ashok? What do we find? Purity of coins was also going down. Okay? In contrast, the debasement of coins, debasement of coins during the later periods of Mauryan rule reflects a financial crisis being faced by the state. Financial crisis being faced by the state. Okay? In fact, this crisis may have been responsible for the decline of the Mauryan Empire, which was dependent upon a strong economy for survival. Strong economy for survival. Okay? Next main point likho in the form of a conclusion. So urban economy, rural economy, both we have seen. Now conclusion. Write down. On the basis of this discussion, it is clear that the Mauryan state was in complete command of the economy. In fact, all the economic resources were geared towards the fulfillment of the state's financial needs. Stop. Till the economy prospered, the Mauryan state remained strong. But economic decline, economic crisis spelled the doom of the Mauryan state itself. Crisis spelt the doom, S-P-E-L-T, spelt the doom, the doom. Qayamat, okay? Doom of the Mauryan state itself. All right. So these are the important things that we need to know about Mauryan state. Next topic that we'll be covering is Ashoka's Dhamma. लेकिन आज के लिए मैं केवल इकोनॉमी का डिस्कशन प्रिपेयर करके लाया था. तो अशोका's धम्मा विल हैव टू कवर इन आवर नेक्स्ट लेक्चर. कल 5 बजे से इसको कवर करते हैं. विल ट्राई टू गेट थ्रू द रिमेनिंग टॉपिक्स ऑफ द मौर्यन एम्पायर टुमारो एज वेल. कल कोशिश रहेगी कि मौर्यन एज खत्म हो जाए. ठीक है? एनी डाउट्स? नहीं? चलिए देन, विल सी यू टुमारो.